I mean, it's described as clickbait because it's not really about a 4-day week, it's about productivity. What is the best way? What is the most productive way for your organisation to run? I think we've all seen huge changes in the way people work over the last number of years. And we are pretty obsessed about how can we be better? How can we be more productive? And what is it about a 5-day week that works? All people probably are doing a 5-day work week because their granddad did a 5-day work week. And there are better ways of working. And for us, we found a 4-day week is more productive. We do more work. We do about 106% of the work in 4 days that we used to do in 5 days. And that's because we are better at it, not because we are compressing hours.
And how do you track that then? How do you actually track the productivity and the things that you're doing that have improved the processes at the business?
Yeah, we've been really clear from the outset with the team that we did need to track it because we needed data to see if it was going to work or not. So we had a number of ways of doing it. We have our internal sort of timesheet and project system. So we use Salesforce. So that system looks at how busy the team are, what projects they're working on, how efficient they are on those projects on a task basis. And then alongside that, we created our own app. So we've got a fatigue app, which was produced in accordance with, well, basically it was a fatigue app that we used a BA pilot to help us generate it.
It's based on NASA's measure of fatigue for their pilots and astronauts. That's where the science comes from. But we hired a BA pilot to help us develop that. So it's now our own version of that. Plus, we've got some questions around happiness in there, so we can measure tiredness and happiness and see if the productivity is actually making people knackered and unhappy. And surprise, surprise, happiness has gone up for the 4-day week. But also, interestingly, fatigue has gone down. People are less tired.
So I've got some stats here that you've given us around that. So we've got 28% less tired staff, 66% reduction in sickness, 14% happier, 22% more productive, 25% by the end of our financial year. What are your thoughts on all of those stats?
We're pretty happy with them, obviously. So like John was saying, we needed to get some measures, and we didn't just launch into a 4-day week. We worked very hard to get the preparation right. It would be a massive risk, obviously, just to launch straight into it without doing that. And we have to measure pre and during, and obviously we're still measuring how we're doing, as we've been talking about.
It's so quite a year yet, isn't it?
Yeah, so there was a lot of scepticism amongst some of the team. A lot of them were very excited about it, as you can imagine. So we had to persuade the team that it was a good idea, and we weren't just taking a flyer on it. There's other businesses in other parts of the world that have been doing this for a little while. And research is really persuasive. You know, productivity doesn't tend to go down in 4-day weeks. 4-day weeks, yeah.
It's amazing. So just for me and everybody listening, so what was the timeline to that then, from you deciding as a management team, who brought it to the table, how long did it take for you to put those systems in place, introduce it to the team, and when did you start to see the benefits from when you started that process? Was it a month, 2 months, 3 months? Give us a bit of a rundown on what that looked like.
Years and years and years. We started talking about it. Well, we've been talking about productivity since we started Tyler Grange 13 years ago. The conversations around the 4-day week started once there was a big New Zealand study. I think there was some stuff in Iceland. There's some stuff going on around the world, and we were looking at that. And we just started talking about, probably about 4 years ago, we started talking properly about it. And we decided that it was something we really wanted to look at and probably do about 2 years before the start of the trial. And from that moment onwards, we started working out how it might work, what data we needed to gather, what sort of ways we could improve the way we worked in order to allow it to happen. So we did things like declaring more admin. So we started the run up. We were actually going to start it in January of this year, but the 4-day week trial started in the summer. So we joined that because we could then work with other companies. So that was really helpful. We also then started a soft launch, didn't we? So we made Fridays optional for about 6 months beforehand. People could work Fridays if they needed to, didn't have to. So I would say the companies that haven't succeeded from the trial are the ones that just turn it on.
Yeah.
They really struggled. And there was a few that told their team the day they started, and that terrified me. I still get a sinking feeling thinking about that. I would say one of the key learnings from us is don't just pile in. That is a very
you've got to take your team with you, you've got to take your clients with you, your collaborators, involve everybody in it. Acknowledge that not everything will go to plan. So we produce frequently asked questions, we produced a guide, we had an emergency response procedure because we knew it was a big change for the business. But actually it was also prompted looking back. We had a lot of working parents in the business, and we noticed just how efficient and productive they were in the business over 3 or 4 days. Yeah. Also, our sector really struggles with recruitment. Consultancy people get burnt out. We do long hours. Putting all that together, we really need to do something, and we need to do it soon. If we wait and put this off too long, it's going to be too late.
Yeah. So we looked at sport as well, didn't we? I mean, we've got one of our non-execs, Rusty Earnshaw, he's quite a high-level coaches mainly in rugby. He also does cricket and all sorts of hockey and all sorts of things. And in the world of elite sport, you don't work 5 days solidly doing your sport. There's a lot of training and practice to peak and perform at your absolute best. You have to rest. And that's one of the things, isn't it? If you want to maximize how good you are at your job, you've got to have breaks. You've got to have significant periods of rest. You couldn't perform at your best in sport for 5 days, could you? So why do we think you can do that in a work context? It's not the same, but there's some definite similarities there. So there's things like that help persuade us to do it.
Yeah, and I mean, the stats that I said earlier show that. So if anyone's got any questions around the stats and the positive aspects or the fatigue gap that's been mentioned, please put them in the Zoom links, and we'll answer them when we get to them. Well, as you've said, occupational burnout by the World Health Organization is now classified as a disease. So you'd think the 4-day work week would be one of the things that would avoid that happening within businesses to both the leaders and your team. But what challenges have you had with the 4-day work week? We've talked about all the positive effects within your business, which is fantastic. But I bet there's probably some people on this webinar listening or eating their lunch on their lunch break thinking, this is too good to be true. I can't suddenly give all my staff the day off on a Friday, have the day off myself, and suddenly my business is more productive, everybody's happier, I'm making more money. What are the honest challenges that happens to yourself or you've seen with the other businesses you've worked with that you haven't mentioned?
One thing we were really nervous about before we embarked on it was this could change Tyler Grange. It could change the way we do things. We really worked very hard from day one at Tyler Grange actually to define what our values were, and we've involved the team in that over 13 years we've been going. But clearly, working 1 day less a week can put a lot of strain on the team, and the way they work might change. It could change behaviours, and we really didn't want that. So we worked pretty hard, well, very hard. I think it's paramount actually to make sure that the way we're working hasn't been, and the behaviours within the business haven't changed. So we've got to define that first to understand whether it's going to change or not. But that's something we've been working very hard on, and will continue to.
So being really clearly aligned with what your values are as a business already.
We talk about them a lot.
Yeah.
Conversation. I think is that the biggest fear of the team was that it was compressed hours. So you're cramming that already busy week into 4 days, and we had to be very, very purpose of a 4-day week.
You've got to be better. The break has to make you better at your job for it to work, and that involves the whole team. But one thing I'd say about that is if you give everybody in your team the incentive of an entire day, and money can't buy incentive, which is a whole day. Elon Musk can't buy a day, nobody can. You can give that to your team. They're going to try really hard to change their working practice to be more productive. Yeah. That as a unit is incredibly powerful. That is probably the single reason why the productivity's gone up. But it is very hard, and it is very challenging, and it isn't for everybody. Tyler Grange is not for everybody. It's quite intense. You gotta love what you do because it's hard. So we spend a lot of time helping people understand whether the work we're doing, the way Tyler Grange works, the culture we have is right for people, and it isn't right for everybody. Otherwise, it wouldn't be distinctive. And for those that it isn't right for, we help them to move on in a really nice way. So people had left during the 4-day week because of the 4-day week, because it wasn't right for them. And I'll go back to the clickbait thing. It's not about a 4-day week. It's about what is the best and most productive way of working. And it almost certainly isn't 5 days, 9 to 5. And if you don't ask that question, you're probably not going to be around in a number of years, because you've got to ask that as a business leader. Are we working the right way? If you don't ask that question, you probably won't be around. That's my opinion. We're constantly thinking about how we can get better. So the 4-day week isn't the end. We're not necessarily a 3-day week. I think that possibly be a bit much, but it might mean changing some of the working practices around the hours during the day and the way we work.
Yeah, you've also got to innovate your products, your output. So producing the reports that we did a decade ago just isn't right now. Technology means we can innovate them, improve them, make them more efficient in the way they're presented to our clients. That's a big part of it. We've made a load of mistakes during the trial and during its permanency, and we've adapted. I think that's really key as well. When we started the trial, we had an emergency procedure, which we suddenly realised was basically being manned by all the owners of the business. So the business was having a 4-day week, and we were all standing by our phones on a Friday. And we had that moment of reflection of, this isn't a 4-day week. But that was the right thing for us to do at the time, but we've adapted and moved that on.
Productivity went down in the first month, by the way. So June was the first full month of a 4-day week, and our productivity dropped quite substantially, and it was terrifying. Because we thought, oh no, how have we made a terrible mistake? Are all the naysayers right? It's just, we've got to work 5 days. But it just takes a little bit of time to get comfortable with it. You've worked 5 days a week, learned 5 days a week since you were 4 years old when you start primary school, Monday to Friday. It's just conditioned into you. Having a Friday where you're not working is weird. You feel guilty, really hard to get into the swing of it. And I think the first 3 months reflected that a bit. Everyone was like a bit freaked out. I didn't know what to do on a Friday. I ended up having to go on the golf course, play golf.
Right,
really.
sounds awful.
I know. What a disaster. Yeah, it was awful. Because that was the only way I could not work. And you're not going to see the benefits unless you actually stop working. Yeah. So yeah, it's not easy.
No, and it's conditioning or retraining. I think across the board, the whole business, we've been helping people to be a bit more, prioritise. Let's not have a 2-hour meeting when we can have an hour long, or even less, or maybe we don't even need a meeting. So things like that. It's amazing how much time you can win back, if you like, just by reducing time or wasting.
Yeah. And then, so would you say after trialing it for so long now, you're in your groove with the 4-day work week, you're exactly where you want to be? Are there some small changes that you're still trying to implement, or things you want to iron out, or is everything good in Tyler Grange land?
It's constant change, yeah. and we're as an environmental business, we have seasonal peaks and troughs in our workload, and we can see from our fatigue app, we can see that there will be fluctuations in happiness. I mean, January, as for most people, we saw people's happiness levels sink. But we know why, but at least we can see it, and we want to transparently show everybody that it will fluctuate, and we will get it wrong at times, and there will be more pressure on the team, particularly during the busy survey seasons. But I think we're still under the impression that everybody having the same day in the business has reduced that stress burden in a consultancy business, because somebody else isn't picking up that workload.
Yeah.
So that still feels right for us. So in the foreseeable, that feels like the best approach. Yeah. But it will be different for different businesses. Some supply businesses, distribution businesses have said, no, they have to do a Monday, Friday model, or a Monday, Wednesday, Friday model. So you have to find what works best for your business and apply it and trial it.
It doesn't have to be about a week.
Yeah. And the other thing about preparation, we talked to our clients before we did this.
Right.
Like John was saying, it depends what the industry you're in, but and actually, typically the industry we work in, Friday is very often deadline day, and you can imagine having conversations with clients saying, "Oh, we're all off on a Friday. Is that okay?" Saying, Imagine they were a little bit unsure about that.
They were fine with it.
But yeah, well, once you, yeah, exactly. But you just got to be very organised. You don't send them the report Thursday last thing, because they may come back with some comments. You've got to be prepared to deal with those.
Yeah.
So you've got to be quite organised.
We have said this isn't at the expense of our work or our projects failing. So if something is going wrong on a Thursday, the message to the team is you can't just walk away from it. You've got to fix that.
Yeah, and sometimes you've got to work on a Friday if your comms haven't been on point, or you haven't got it right on your 4-day week, then you're going to have to do something on a Friday, because our client success is paramount to us.
Yeah.
We're obsessive about helping our clients get what they want, and in order to do that, sometimes if you haven't done that well in your 4 days, you're going to have to come in. And it's very rare, but it's just like we used to do it on a Saturday and a Sunday. Now Fridays, occasionally you have to come and do a bit of work. But I mean, I've manned the emergency helpline since we started the trial. I haven't had one call since I've done that, the days that I've done it. So there's been very little. And I think our clients would say, that certainly the ones I speak to, say that we've got better. And I genuinely think that is because our comms, our communication has had to become so much better for us to make sure that they're getting what they need so they don't fail us on a Friday.
It's almost like you've had to do a internal risk assessment of all the challenges and problems that might come up when you speak with your clients. So it'd be great to hear if you've got access to the chat function, attendees. I'm not sure if you do on this fancy Zoom layout, but if you do, it'd be great to hear what industries and sectors you're from, or what challenges you might be having in your business that Tyler Grange might not be coming across in their organisation. And it'd be also great if you've got any questions for us to be putting those questions in the Q&A as well, and we'll get to them as we go through today's webinar. There's a few things there that made me think of things that we've implemented in our business. For example, we have in our email signatures that we only check email Monday to Thursday, because it gives that kind of constant remembrance to people who get emails from us saying, oh, okay, if I send Hannah an email on a Friday, I'm probably not going to get a reply. And also I guess it's going back to that sort of like only taking meetings on certain days and things like that, just really trying to make sure you've got that focus time in the 4 days that you've got. But you mentioned there about new systems, new processes, new ways of doing business, so we don't get left behind, which brings us seamlessly onto B Corp. So for those people who are attending this Zoom who haven't heard of B Corps, B Corp is a certification that all businesses can go for if they're profit-led organisations. It's a worldwide certification across all industries and all sectors. And currently what it does is it looks at 5 areas of your business and provides you a score for that. And it also is an expectation that you make a legal change to your organisation. So in the UK, that means that you make a legal change saying that you work from looking after your shareholders as a business to looking after your stakeholders when you're making decisions. And the assessment that you take, you need to get a score of over 80 points. So there's no minimum score in the 5 sections, but your overall score has to be over 80 points. So it sounds simple, 2 things to do: get 80 points, make a quick legal change that doesn't cost anything. As someone that helps businesses through the B Corp process, and as a B Corp, I think we can both attest it's not as simple as I've just made it sound. You actually got a sector leading score of 91.3, which is incredibly high, an incredibly high score for a B Corp. Let's talk a little bit about why you started that process, because I know when we talked, last year, it sounds like these 2 things kind of came along at the same time to the business. So what brought you onto the B Corp process?
I think, well, firstly, we were doing a lot already. So the day we started the business, 4 of us founded the business, we wanted a business that was happy and that collaborated and made a difference to the community we were in. And so we'd always offered anybody that joined the team to have 1 day a month doing voluntary community work. We had strong values, and we just wanted to build on that. And as an environmental consultancy, we never wanted to be accused of greenwashing or not practicing what we preach as a business. So it led us to have that aspiration to move towards B Corp. Knowing that it'd be challenging. Again, I think when we were a young business, it felt too daunting. There was so much to overcome. But because we built the business in this way, it helped us align with it a bit easier than some businesses, I imagine. So it was hard work, I mean, we've put hours into it, but achieving the B Corp certification felt like the start, really. Even in the last 3 months, we've improved and added a lot more to our business that I think
our environmental score is our worst score, which is a bit embarrassing.
We were really honest about that.
Yeah.
Really honest. I mean, we've got, at the end of the day, we've got 85+ people driving around the country to do surveys, and that has an impact. And we're looking at that. But again, for B Corp, I'd say, I mean, I was pleased that it was such a rigorous, challenging process, because I get a lot of negative media thrown back at me saying B Corp's just, you just pay for a badge. And it's like, anybody that says that to me, I give them an hour's education. It is not that.
Plus, once you're B Corp, you've got to keep working at it. It's about continued improvement, and the standards are becoming more rigorous, aren't they? So
they are.
A cautionary note: once you're B Corp, there's still work to be done.
Definitely. So the process that we talked about, the B Corp process, good, I'm glad you think so, is 5 sections at the moment. And essentially what it is it's a framework businesses can use, and the assessment is a framework businesses can use to really look at their systems and processes and their approach to business and how they can improve it, both have a better positive and social and environmental impact. And as I said, it's 5 sections at the moment. It's increasing to 10 standards by the end of the year, which will all have minimum expectations within. To give anyone on the call that's never heard of B Corps a bit of an idea of brands that are, you're talking about Patagonia, Allbirds, Ben & Jerry's ice cream, but lots of small micro businesses are B Corps as well. It's not just for kind of big, publicly, huge consumer facing brands. And in the UK, when I started my business, which supports B Corps, there was around 300 in the UK, and now there's 1,200 B Corps, which sounds like a lot, but when we've got 5.8 million businesses in the UK, I think it's like 0.02% of businesses are B Corp certified. So not only is it really hard to get, there's not many of us out there. So it'd be really cool to know if there's any other B Corps on the call, and whether you're interested in the 4-day work week. Because you're a B Corp, you've heard about it that way, I'd love to hear your kind of thoughts. But when we talk about that certification, which again, as we said, any industry, any sector, it's a process that you go through as a business. You can get external support, or you can do what you guys did, which is you chose a beekeeper within your business to help you through the process. So what were the
shout out to Kate?
Shout out to Kate. Kate, sorry. Key lessons and what have surprised you most about working on the B Corp process, both leading up to it and maybe since you've become a B Corp, the changes that you're continuing to make in the business?
I mean, the big one for me is it's opened up this massive network of friends and collaborators, which
cool.
And they are there to help each other. And like yourself, Hannah, and we attended your business conference. There is a room of people that are just all striving towards a similar goal, and it just feels amazing. And also it helps to realise that there are people there to discuss those challenges, because it isn't easy. And I think
it's the same as the 4-day week, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not, the point isn't really B Corp. I mean, B Corp is a journey you go on, isn't it? It's not a destination. Sounds a bit cliche, doesn't it? It probably is, but that's so true. But that's not the point. The point is, do you actually want to have a business that's fairly that is meaningful? Is it just about profit? Also, if you don't get on board with this kind of thing, you are going to become irrelevant and not exist again. So if you don't look at these things and become better as a business, you stop being relevant and you end up not being a business. So this is not something that's optional, in my opinion. You've got to start looking at this stuff. You've got some great examples that you were talking about before we started, weren't you? Companies that have seen some unbelievable benefits out of it. Basically, their business has transformed financially.
Yeah, so I was actually talking about a client of mine, the Wellbeing Farm, who are based in Bolton, who are a hospitality venue, weddings and conferences. They're a member of the Better Business Network, and they came to me and were going through their B Corp process, so we gave them some support on that. And I saw her last night, and she said she'd been approached by a media company, large one we all know, to talk about the budget and how it had negatively affected her hospitality business. And she said to them, I'm really sorry, I can't tell you that actually. Since becoming a B Corp, business is off the charts. We're getting tons of corporate bookings, lots from other B Corp businesses, people specifically wanting to use her venue because it is B Corp certified, because as you said, the process is vigorous. The badge at the end is what everybody sees, but anyone who knows the hard process of getting that badge really supports it. And it makes it, you know, for me as a consumer, it definitely makes a difference in the things that I buy. I get my home internet from Zen Internet. I have Honest Mobile for my work and my my home phone. Plenty of other B Corp brands. I mean, there's loads of food and drink ones. I won't list them all, but there's quite a lot kind of in that value chain now as well. And I think you use a couple of B Corp brands now since changing.
Since certification, we've moved to Honest Mobile. All our procurement now is coming through the social supermarket. So again, a big change for us, but it's been relatively easy. And I think what people don't often believe, but it hasn't cost us anymore. It hasn't cost us more as a business. We've saved money actually working with other B Corps, which again,
it's really helped with the 4-day week as well.
Yeah,
the efficiencies around looking at these processes and trying to source them more ethically, but also trying to make sure that we don't end up burning through all our money. It's just it's been really nice doing them together, really challenging. Yeah. I mean, if I don't know how I feel about this. If we had it again, would we do both at the same time? I think probably not. It's really hard.
You did jump in the deep end there, really, didn't you? Huge changes.
Yeah, true. But a lot of it was very, well, there's a big overlap. But what I was going to say was the relevance of B Corp and what it stands for is only going to increase, isn't it? And you know, the guys that work for us, I think, are really keen on it, and in terms of recruitment, surprisingly, when you talk to people, a lot of them don't actually know about it, but when they hear about it, it's like, well, actually, that is
we've had people join us because we're a B Corp.
Yeah,
since we've had people, we've had quite a few more inquiries because we're a B Corp. Yeah. So yeah, it is. I mean, we're an environmental business, so our guys are quite well aware of, probably more so than most, but it's definitely helped from that front. I mean, we are getting large organisations approaching us to do work because we're a B Corp. And again, I'll go back to that point. You've got to look at ESG. You've got to look at these things, because if you don't, you're not going to be relevant and you're not going to be around. And if you are at the 4-day week, I remember the moment, the second at which I personally really wanted to be a 4-day week company, because I woke up in the night and I'd had a dream that one of our competitors had done it. That's how obsessed I'd become. And I was like, oh no, we wanted to go early because you get a lot of the benefits. So I'd say, again, if you're on this thinking about it, start thinking about it, because if you're last, you're going to get some downsides and you're going to get no upside. If you're early, you're going to get a lot of upside as well as maybe a bit more downside because you're an early adopter. But the benefit of thinking about this early is huge, and exactly the same is going to be true with B Corp. Because it's ingrained in our business, it won't be a change in the future. It's just something we do. That means we're going to get all the benefits, but we won't have downsides. And if you're last, you're going to start struggling to win work. You're going to have to work harder and harder on sales. You're going to have to work harder and harder on recruitment. And that is not just B Corp, but it's the 4-day week as well. These are very complementary things.
Yeah.
So I would encourage people to look at it.
A lot of people I speak to they're on the path. They already say to me, actually, quite a few people in our business work 4-day. And actually the pandemic saw a change in working patterns anyway and working trends. So our email traffic on a Friday after the pandemic had definitely shifted down anyway. People have always socialised on a Thursday evening in our sector. And again, Fridays were pretty unproductive. We have the ability with B Corp to give 30,000 volunteering hours as a business. And that the social impact of that, I think, is just as a 4-day week company, the social impact of that is just epic.
So we've done a lot of statistics there, of your own statistics from your business, the commercial benefits of the 4-day week. In regards to B Corps, there was a performance report come out at the beginning of last year around the performance of UK B Corps and then UK businesses, and B Corps outperformed, you know, the standard data on UK businesses by, you know, higher turnover, better employee retention. So there's lots of commercial data that supports these, what some would see as quite kind of progressive ideas, but also you're saying, you know, if you don't do it now, they're not progressive.
They're essential.
They're essential. Yeah. So
you're not very good as a leader if you're not looking at it. That's my opinion.
I'd love to go into some audience questions as well, because we've got loads in there. But just, you know, quickly before we go on to all of those audience questions, I want to ask you, like, we've got 4-day work week, we've got B Corp, and I mean, this is the thing that I think a few people said to me actually at the Better Business Summit was, when's the next one? And I was like, I haven't finished this one yet, actually. Can I just get a drink at the bar? It was good. It was good, and there is a next one. It will be in January next year. It would be great to we're really talking about reimagining work, not just for your sector or your industry. We're talking about work overall. So whatever business type you have, we're saying here you've got a responsibility and the power to make some changes in your business. So for you, either as individuals or as with your Tyler Grange hats on, where do you kind of see this reimagined future taking us in regards to, like, what do you see the trends happening either in your own business, or what would you like to start seeing industry-wide or sector-wide? Would you like to see in 20 years' time that the 4-day work week is just standard for everybody? Do you want it quicker than that? Do you think it will be quicker than that? Are there other things you think are going to happen? I don't know, we're all travelling by unicycle to work, whatever you think. What's been kind of in your head about this kind of reimagined future we're talking about?
We've got quite a lot of initiatives coming up that are as, if not more, challenging. So yeah, I'm not going to talk about all of them now, because some of them are just we're just chucking them around at the moment.
Yeah,
we're looking at things like being very transparent around salaries. It's quite a big deal for our sector, so we're looking at things like that. I'm personally, I know you guys are as well, we get approached by loads of organisations talking to us about 4-day week. I'm talking to an NHS trust about a 4-day week because there's obviously issues around the NHS. That's fascinating, because you think, hang on a minute, they can't do the work they're doing now. How are they going to do it if you do less? But if you can attract more people in and they're more effective when they're in, you could see a real transformation. So there's things like that happening. I'm talking to a marketing company, a manufacturing company. In the trial, it went across all sectors and they all worked. And the interesting thing is, every time I talk to somebody comes and says to me, oh, you're doing it, but it won't work for us. That is, everybody says that. Yeah. And then when you actually get them to think about their productivity and what would work for them, it's never 5 days, 9 to 5, never. So I think in terms of trends on a 4-day week, I don't know if it will be a 4-day week across the whole country. I suspect it shouldn't be. I would much rather each sector, each business looked at their own productivity and the sweet spot around which they can deliver to their stakeholders, their clients, whatever it might be, the very best service. And for us, Monday to Thursday at the moment seems to be giving our clients a better service than Monday to Friday. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think the progression of business, from my perspective, will be that businesses go beyond what their day-to-day remit is. You'll have your business function, but we've all got a responsibility, ethically, morally, environmentally, and socially, to do more than just turn up and do your job. I think people have got to recognise that it's the only way we will change the planet. Linked to that, I think technology and innovation is going to change the way we all work. I know there's questions around AI and what that means for all of us, but I think balancing that, we've learned that actually human contact, communication has changed for the worst, and so actually encouraging people to meet in person, communicate, talk, pass on lessons, encourage them to do things like this is really important. If businesses just hide in offices or at home, I think, we're going backwards. So innovation has got to be balanced with that human contact.
I'd also add that some reflection on what the team that work for you want is essential. So 4-day week, B Corp, they're just 2 examples. but they're examples that mean our team are happier. And you read out the statistics earlier, in terms of sick leave and how happy, etc., productivity. I think as a business, as businesses, we all need to be thinking, what was the next thing, and what would make our team happier. There'll be other things. That's just two of them.
Mental health is a big one, isn't it? I mean, we've got an in-house psychologist, Suzanne and Aura. They job share. They come into our business one day a month and run a clinic. We also run courses on mental health. That's helped happiness and absenteeism, which has driven up productivity and service to our clients. So it's the constant evolution of what makes your business better. And we're always trying to come up with new ideas, and we try stuff that fails.
Yeah, that's really important. A lot of ideas that we have don't work, but share what doesn't work, share what does work with each other. Businesses can be quite inward looking on their own focus. It's like the reason for doing things like this is we want to genuinely share with people what's worked, what hasn't. That's really important. Share the lessons.
Because that will amplify the impact for everybody else.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we've got a couple of kind of specific questions about your business. So we've got, how do you deal with no one being in on a certain day? We've talked about that kind of emergency response line there that you've got, and the FAQs and the guides out.
Be awesome on the days.
And be very, okay, excellent.
That's how to deal with that.
So I think maybe that question might have come up before we've gone through that discussion point.
Sure.
But specifically, how do you manage staff toil with the 4-day week, and how many hours is your 4-day week? So that's quite an interesting one, because if you're doing 8 a.m. till 8 p.m, it's cheating, guys.
Yeah. It's not a 4-day week if you just extend your hours. That's just changing a 5-day week. So it's a different 5-day week.
Yeah.
Time off in lieu, toil, is a word we don't like, isn't it? I would think we've
always avoided it.
Toils. I mean, we don't toil. We like working. We have a great time. And toil is a word. I have a problem with it. We get the job done, so we're task-based. We're very task-focused around what we're doing, so it's not about how many hours. Ideally, we get work done efficiently and as well as we possibly can, and it takes as long as it takes. We have targets around financial performance for the team, which they must hit. So we're quite strict on that, and that's where the pressure comes in for the team. So it's not a fluffy business where everybody's having a lovely time. It's all happiness. Happiness is working hard and overcoming obstacles. Isn't about smiling all the time. You can't do that. That's not possible.
But hard's not necessarily long, is it?
Hard is not long. No, hard is about efficiency and doing the work in the best possible way. So we don't do time off in lieu. So if you work a long day, we help you work out how to not work a long day again, rather than pay you for it.
Yeah, I once had a boss say to me, if you're working late, if you're working long hours, either I'm doing something wrong or you're doing something wrong. It's not that should be the status quo. It should be a recognition that either I've given you too much work to do in your work hours, which means I'm not delegating correctly as a boss, of which you should highlight that to me, or you're struggling with some of your tasks because they're taking you longer than they should be, and you need extra support and training. So actually, it's never really. It almost feels a bit like it's not your fault if you're doing longer hours. It's an opportunity to speak to your leadership or the people in your department to solve that, rather than take it as that status.
But we take health and safety of the team incredibly important. So also our fatigue alerts, if there's a fatigue issue or somebody's working under circumstances where they've not had enough sleep or travelled. So that is taken very seriously. But essentially we're contracted to do 8-hour days across the 4 days.
By the way, you can download our fatigue app if you want to have a look at it. If you're on the App Store or on Google Play, and
Excellent.
Tyler Grange, you can
have it for free. Excellent. So we've got a couple of questions here. So no one being on a certain day, I feel we've talked about that already. Subcontracting seasonal ecologists working on the days you don't join the survey system. That's a very specific question to Tyler Grange. Would one of you like to answer that for me?
Yeah, they do. They do.
We have a network of partners, so Tyler Grange partners, the people who've signed up and are interested in working for us in hours and days which suit them. So it means we can be doing work over 7 days, but our core team only work 4 days, and our partners can choose to work at times which is flexible for them.
Yeah.
So we've got, how did you measure productivity, which I think we discussed. You do a lot of that through your Salesforce at the moment, and that's how you're measuring your tasks. Is that the only kind of system and process you use for productivity?
Well, I mean, we come at it from a lot of angles because we're fairly obsessed with it. But there's the obvious financial one. Are we delivering profit for the business? That's one. Yeah. And we are more. Are we delivering tasks? So we're measuring the number of tasks being completed. Are we completing more or less tasks? That's another one. We're measuring happiness, we're measuring fatigue. We're coming at it from loads of different angles, and I think that's important. If you just look at your bottom line financially, you might come very unstuck, because you're going to miss some pretty key things.
We've done a lot of work about setting expectations and avoiding sort of vague, can you do this? And without saying by then or whatever, and ensuring, like John was saying, that there's a lot of communication within the team so that you know what's going on, and there'll always be barriers to things being done. If you talk about them.
If you work at Tyler Grange, you've got to deliver, and we're very insistent on that. But that is delivering financially on their performance, but it's also delivering on their response. They have to volunteer. You have to demonstrate that you're volunteering for charities or communities. So there's quite a lot of emphasis placed on delivering the productivity we're expecting, and if you don't, we'll support you and help you. If you carry on being unable to, it may be that Tyler Grange isn't the right place for you. We will support you and help you find something that really does. We've had people going off and becoming teachers, and we've helped them do that. People have gone off, traveled to other parts of the world, and helped them do that. So we're very supportive about people exiting Tyler Grange as well, where it's not right for them. But this is not an easy place to work unless you love your job.
Well, talking about that, then we've got quite a few questions which I'm going to kind of wrap into one, really, because there's a lot around kind of staff and how it's worked with staff. So we've got Caroline's asked if your productivity dropped before it began to rise again, and you did mention that did happen in the first month or two, but you stuck with it.
The first 3 months, it went down sharply, then it came back up, but not quite far enough. And then it started doing really well. So yeah, stick with it. It's scary though.
But we did do it in the busiest time for us, and we received we made it as hard as possible. The biggest risk. But I suppose if you're going to do a trial, you want to do it at the time when it's most difficult to get it.
Yeah, you definitely want to challenge everything.
So I'm going to combine Nicola and Kay's question. So Kay said, sometimes it's that old-fashioned mentality, people rather sitting at their desks for that time. Which she obviously doesn't believe in, and you've mentioned that, and that's probably one of the reasons why people don't seem the right fit. You've given them that opportunity to go and find something else that fits with them better.
Parkinson's law, that is, isn't it?
Yeah, but I get the other important thing linked to that is like we have a social culture at Tyler Grange, and as Simon said, the threat of losing that because of a 4-day week was very real. So we build that into the business in other ways, and Fridays can be and are used for social things.
We'll have parties on Fridays.
But that's still going to be part of the business. You don't want it to be so intense during the 4 days that disappears.
Most people want to come to the parties because they're good.
But if you honestly look at the data and see how little work most people achieve on a Friday, it's insane.
Clocking in and out 9 to 5. Marking time, that you can't do that in a 4-day week business. But why would you want to do
one of the worst in Europe on productivity? Productive hours in the UK are under 3 hours a day. That's across the whole of the country. So and that's based on an 8-hour day. So there's 5 unproductive hours in a day in the UK, and we are right at the bottom of the league table in Europe. So there's plenty of scope to be better, definitely.
So Nicola's asked about teams' anxiety levels, about reassuring them about how it would work, and we've had an anonymous attendee asking about your staff turnover reducing, or have you found it easier to recruit? So, and I guess that also goes into the next question, which is in terms of wages, how have you managed that wage system? I'm happy to share mine. At Better Not Stop, we do a 35-hour work week. 9 till 5:30 people get paid for their lunch break, and then we don't work Fridays, but they get paid like an annual salary, so they kind of get paid, I guess, for a 40-hour work week, but they work 35. So it's quite clear in our kind of job advertising and everything like that, so it's not that there's like a pay cut happening or anything like that.
We put our salaries up.
Okay.
I spoke to a French guy who'd done a 4-day week in France, and he said, because the formula is 180, 100, so 100% of your pay for 80% of your time, but you have to deliver 100% productivity. He said, well, that doesn't work for me because it's more than 100%. So salaries went up at Christmas because we were doing better. So yeah, and our hours are 32 hours.
Yeah, and actually people that were already working part-time obviously had a pay increase as well.
Which they pay up by 20%, which they quite liked.
And how did you find, how's staff turnover been? Did you have a bit of a, you mentioned maybe a bit of a drop of people leaving you, the new process? Yeah.
People have left because of the 4-day week, but our staff turnover has dropped like a stone.
Yeah.
And recruitment. Yes. I mean, our sector is notoriously difficult to recruit. There's a lot of jobs. No, I mean, we saw an 88% increase in CVs in the first 6 weeks.
I think what it's allowed us to do actually is we've always been quite picky about recruits. We want to get the very best people. What it's really allowed us to do is really start the people who've joined us have been, the quality of CVs that we've had to look at has gone up massively. Yeah.
So we've had a question from Peter about the name of the fatigue app. I think that's just Tyler Grange.
Yeah, just type Tyler Grange into the App Store.
Excellent. And then I'm going to go on to a question from Adam now, who's asked a specific B Corp question. So if anyone's got any other B Corp questions, let us know. We've done a lot on the 4-day work week so far. He said, did you manage to score some points in the land wildlife conservation sections? He's getting some pushback on this because the implementation is undertaken by his clients. But of course, he does the survey, consulting and advising, etc., etc. Love to hear your experience on that.
Good question.
It's a really good one.
It's a challenge. It isn't necessarily in our power to deliver some of this stuff. However, we are often monitoring it, so we do get involved.
We know that the development industry and the sector we work in are being pushed further and further along of scoring, rating the impact of projects and monitoring them. So we know that's built into some projects, definitely not all, and there's an educational process to go through.
And some clients really love the fact that we're a B Corp for that reason. It gives us a bit more credibility. Yeah.
I think one of the challenges for us and every business is that to find the transparency and the true impact of some of the projects we're involved with is very difficult at the moment. Some of the environmental enhancement and environmental net gain we do as a business, on the face of it looks fantastic, but there are still impacts as a result of those works. And you can keep looking down the chain of where are the plants sourced, how are the contractors treated. There's a lot to consider.
I find that with B Corps, it's a Pandora's box, isn't it? Because often the assessment in itself will be asking you questions you might not have asked yourself as a business before. So you're then starting to try and kind of discover what is your answer to that, or what is your feeling on that, what are your values on that question. And I think, Adam, specifically for you, there is a support function on that B Corp certification, and just be conscious that a lot of the analysts for B Corp, because they're working across all industries and all sectors, are not going to have a complete understanding of your particular industry and sector. So if you're feeling that you are being unfairly scored or judged within a sector, it's definitely worth kind of highlighting that to them and asking how you can provide evidence there. That's something I typically go through quite often with my clients, because I was a business consultant before becoming a B Corp consultant. I do have a lot of kind of understanding of those different things, and often sometimes the analysts have never worked as a business owner or in your industry or sector. So it might kind of involve, it's always a two-way street with that verification process. So I definitely would recommend reaching out to B Corp as well directly, sending them a support ticket and asking them how you could evidence that in your particular case. So we've answered a few of the questions here already, I think, but we've got another one here talking about travel and ecology, because you can't make driving for an hour more efficient. Now, it depends. If you're listening to a good podcast, I think you can. But we did actually talk about that before we came on the Zoom call, about that's an aspect of your business that really you can't escape, really. There is travel involved. So what are you doing in regards to that?
Well, we give the power to the team, don't we? So they work out, because they've got this incentive to be more productive, having this whole day off. What we've ended up discovering is they are really great at working out their week and their travel. So they're trying to combine journeys.
Yeah, think naturally.
So we have, whilst we've seen productivity go up, we've actually seen the number of miles travelled drop quite significantly. So people are avoiding a lot of travel around things they don't really need to do. They're combining journeys. They're sharing cars a lot more, and they're putting more effort into that.
Yeah.
So yes, you're right, and I'm being slightly flippant. I appreciate that. An hour's an hour when you're travelling to a site. But what, as a whole business, has happened is we've become massively more efficient. I think we're around about 30% down on journeys, aren't we?
Yeah, about 33%.
Despite productivity going up.
But we've got, we're lucky, we've got 6 regional offices, so we'll look at travel times and travel distances. We've just shifted our vehicle transportation booking and hotel booking system to Coco Plus, which is another B Corp. That actually, that gives us an output of not only distance, but it tells us the carbon impacts, and it can select tickets or travel distances and travel modes at different points. Yeah. So that's helped us look at it in a different way and be efficient and more environmentally conscious about what those journeys mean.
We've electrified a lot of our journeys as well. We've got electric cars in the business now, so we are starting to really change that, and a lot of that's been led by the fact B Corp demonstrated to us that we really weren't that great.
Yeah. But a lot of the time winning is, if you've got an 8-hour survey, it's going to be hard to do that more quickly. A lot of it is one in the admin, reduce the admin. We've looked at how we resource things. So the fee earning consultants do much less of that, and they do much more of the fee earning. So look at the way you're doing things.
Yeah, make an ecologist an ecologist,
yes,
not an administrator. That's one of the things we're really obsessing about as well.
And I think that travel question also leads into, you're not going to be able to completely stop travel or make all your vehicles electric immediately. And actually, there's a lot of data suggesting that the most environmentally friendly thing you can do is, if you've got an existing car, is just use that car till it is falling apart and then get your electric car.
There you go.
Yeah. And there's also something just for us all to consider when we're making these changes in our business, and there might be things that are hopefully not too much that you might be shouting at your Zoom screen thinking, oh, well, I can't do that in my business because of X, Y, Z. When it's not really the expectation that all of these suggestions today are going to work in your business, but some of them might, and some of them might work in a smaller way for your own business. Like we said, we can't rule out travel completely for Tyler Grange, but we have looked at how that travel is being done and actually found, by just simply starting to ask ourselves that question, is there an opportunity here to improve our impact in this area? A huge impact has been done. I always call it looking at your climate shadow as a business, not just your carbon footprint. So what are you actually doing as an organisation to actively change things? I live in the Peak District in Glossop. The trains are terrible, and there have been occasions I've had to drive into work, and I thought, well, I feel a bit bad driving my diesel car into Manchester today. But then the other thing I'm thinking, well, my job generally is pretty sustainable, pretty impactful. I'm actually going into work today. I'm going to be able to do some amazing work in my space. So it's just having that measurement of like the effect of the output. What you're saying. Yeah. It's not just having functional jobs anymore. It's thinking about how do you have an impactful business.
Yeah, and celebrating how you can do great stuff rather than feeling guilty or blaming when you're not doing good stuff. So I think there's way too much blame and pressure and not enough celebration and reward and one of the great things about B Corp is the reward side of things. You get the certification, you feel good, but you also start getting more work. Cool.
Tick, tick, tick. So I think we've answered most of the questions there. I apologise if we haven't got to yours. I'm just very conscious of the time, and I absolutely hate it when these Zooms go over when I'm watching them. So I'm very conscious I don't want ours to. I want to thank everybody for sharing your knowledge about Tyler Grange today, and thank you to all of our attendees today as well. We had absolutely tons of you turn up today, so that's been fantastic. I just really like to, before I go into the closing kind of remarks and kind of whether it's one impactful action you'd recommend everyone go away with, or just a thought or a question that you'd like people to think about after this webinar. There will be some follow-up communication here. There is a poll up there, so there's 2 questions we've got there for you. How likely are you to trial a 4-day week? and how likely are you to start your B Corp journey? So I'd love you to just quickly jump on there and give us your answers. And while you're answering that, I'm going to go to our panel and let us know what their last, whether it's an action question or a question or something, whatever you want to share as your concluding remark, that'd be great. And there will be follow-up comms after this as well, and any questions that we miss will also include in that. So yes, we could start with you, please, Julian.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about the 4-day week. It would be very difficult to go back to 5, so we're going to do everything we can to make it work, and it is working. But I'd encourage everybody to think very hard about how they can make it work for their business.
And I'd say to everyone, let's continue to celebrate what we all do well, and let's share what isn't so good. Share the lessons so we can all learn from it.
And mine is straightforward. Why are you doing a 5-day week? If you can't answer that question, you need to go and work it out.
I like it. Very good. And very succinct as well. I was like, are there going to be some big motivational speeches? But we were like, to the point, this is what you all need to do. Listen to the words coming out of the guys at Tyler Grange. So I've got the answers to the poll already, which is brilliant. If you haven't answered it, then please do your answer quickly now. But I'm going to just read out the answers for you so you can see. So for likely to trial a 4-day work week, well, we obviously had a persuasive argument debate over the last hour, because most people have said over the next few years, in the coming months, are already working on it or trialing it. So 20% of you are already trialing that, and in the coming months, another 8% of you. So it's only 8% of you that are saying that you'd never trial a 4-day work week. And I'd be really interested to know whether that's because of the type of business you have, or perhaps you haven't been persuaded by our compelling arguments. I'd love to know what that reason is. And how likely are you to start your B Corp journey? So we've got nearly 40% of people wanting to do it in the next few years. This is a great time of year to look at it at the end of the financial year, because you're always expected when you submit your assessment to have been doing all that work in your last financial year. So it's a great time to get started on that journey. The assessment is free to access, so you can just go on the website and start doing it. But for any support around that, please feel free to come to the Better Business Network website. We've got 31% of people wanting to do it in the coming months, and again another 4%. I wonder if it's the same person who also doesn't want to do the 4-day work week. And we've already got some B Corps in here, or people who've started the journey. 30% of you nearly, which is incredible. That's a huge amount considering how few there are here in the UK. So that is us all done. 2 minutes to spare before your next Zoom meeting or call, or hopefully you'll. That's yeah. We'll add that to the data. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for sharing your questions, and thank you also for giving us your feedback on the poll. And thank you especially to Harry, who's been managing and coordinating this whole effort in the corner, who you can't see, but we're clapping him. Oh, there he is. You see that? There he is. Thank you to Harry for organising and facilitating this Zoom for us. Have a wonderful day, everybody, and we'll speak to you all soon.
Thank you.